Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 16 of Horsin Around here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, with tonight's co-host, Noah Maher, and the one and only Dave Duncan, known as Racing Downwind. There he is. You now all can put a name to a face. Thank you, or a face to a name, I should say. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The eclipse is over. It's safe to come out of the house. You can watch our podcast. It is all good. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Also, smash that like button below the video player and then the upper right-hand corner on the YouTube page. Please hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. The Power Picks. Big Cruise. Anyone have, or Bo Cruise, sorry. Anyone have Bo Cruise this weekend? Raise your hand, kids. I did. 6-1 to start off the pick five, one of our power pick plays. Plus, we hit pick fives. Another great weekend. If you're not subscribed to our power picks tip sheet, look below the video player in the description. Just press show more button right below the video player. You can find out how to subscribe to our tip sheet through Patreon. We've got a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. And we are on Instagram also, instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Noah and Dave, how are we doing today? Noah, I heard you were at a certain location this weekend.
Yeah, I was, since I'm here in the Lexington area going to school, obviously I had to go to Keeneland for opening weekend. And I was fortunate enough to have my parents here for most of the week. So they went out Friday. Unfortunately, school comes first, so I couldn't join them, but I was able to join them Saturday. And Jim Goodman, shout out him. He was able to be a very gracious host and find a spot for us in a very busy bluegrass day. And it was an awesome day and ended with an awesome race and an awesome horse. So it was a great time.
It sure did. The weather cooperated for you guys on Saturday. I hear this week's not actually going to be great weather week. Friday, it's going to start getting a little better. The weekend's going to be fantastic as well. Dave, thanks for having us on the show, man. A lot of people see Racing Downwind in the chat. And again, then now they can put a name, face to a name to a face, etc. I know you're very active on X. Welcome officially to the HHH Racing Podcast. How you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me, Howard. I've been watching you since you were single at this. So now you got the whole crew.
Yeah, it's great. Why don't just really quickly, we know we've got the NCAA game tonight, of course, in about an hour, and we don't want to step on that. But just very briefly, give everyone about a 20-second synopsis how you got involved into horse racing, and then how you found out about our show, number 2.
Wow. Well, it probably started when I was about 7 or 8, going to the quarter horses at Los Alamitos every Friday night with my father. And by the time I was 10, I was walking to the window making $2 bets.
There you go.
They all knew me. Eventually, I knew all the trainers, all the jockeys. Had my first horse at Los Alamitos that I owned, and I actually was a harness horse.
Wow.
Only won one race with me, but from there, when I was 18, moved out of my parents' house, was going to school, and I had 2 jockeys as roommates. Eddie Garcia from Los Alamitos, who's the all-time winningest jockey at Los Alamitos history, was roommate for a year or 2 until he got married to Jane. And from there, I had friends that were jockeys all over the country. I used to travel around New York, Chicago, Florida, all over California to visit my friends, stay with them for a period of time and play the horses. And I'm probably more of a fan of horse racing than I am a fan of betting, but I do enjoy betting as well.
Well, you're pretty darn good at it. And then quickly, how'd you find out about our show?
Well, I met you the first time at Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup. I think it was 2021.
Yes.
So I met you there, and I found your show when I was doing all my research prior to the Breeders' Cup. I found your show, by chance, and that was the first time I saw it on YouTube, maybe 2 weeks before the Breeders' Cup, and
Wow.
then I had the pleasure of meeting you there at Del Mar, then at Keeneland. So yeah, it goes from there.
That's awesome. Well, the rest is history. We got a lot of people in the chat. We have to talk about these races. Matt Miller is here. You all should have heard the roar at the Villa Park Hawthorne OTB. We did what's called a pool party. Nice score for Sierra Leone, and those of us in on the big bet couldn't be more excited. Yeah, it's getting a lot of play right now. I had to. We'll talk about it, but shout out to Hawthorne, guys. We had it was a great time. Shout out to Matt Miller who put some extra bets in for us, for the patrons as well. That worked out really well. Terry Frank is here. Terry, hi all. Looking forward to seeing this recap after being off the grid for the races. Wow. Well, Terry, thanks for coming here. Mark Bogaz looks like down to Sierra Fiercest and Forever Young. I'm going to say it's down to 2, but you want to throw Forever Young in there. That's fine, Mark. I hear you. Sean Kane is here. Hi all. Raymond Cromley, God bless. Steve Nichols. I haven't seen Steve's name in the chat. There's my guy, RDW, a real genius. Gives so much to others. Thank you, Dave. Steven, you got a big fan there, Dave, with Stephen Nichols. Gregory Jung is here. Hello. Stephen had Bo, so awesome. Good for you. Let's see who else here. Life is good at HHH Family Gathering. Sure is, Paul. And we got a lot of people here. So Gabriel, see you in the chat. Thank you. Mike, hey, look, Michael Lawson, finally, he's real, Michael. There he is, racing downwind with a D, by the way. There's a D at the end of that. Maybe he just forgot. Anyway, and Jim Plars is here, who's part of the Sierra Leone bet. He's very excited also. Guys, we got a lot of people watching. Let's jump right into it. First race we're going to talk about. Here's the story tonight. We're going to talk about only the Kentucky Derby preps, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show the points leaderboard. We're going to give our opinions of some of the Derby prep races as a whole. Very quickly, some Derby news for everyone out there if you haven't heard. Irad Ortiz will be riding domestic product for Chad Brown. Very interesting there. And this is not really new, but I think it is important. Track Phantom, guys, I don't know if you heard, has been working in blinkers. They're trying to get a little more speed to them, a little more focused. Will that affect the pace complexion of the race? We shall see. So that's the bigger news. Let's get right to it, guys. Here we go. I got to present. Sorry, I got to press a button here. First race we're going to talk about, of course, look, you got to talk about this race, right? The Bluegrass, Sierra Leone, our guy. Wow. What a horse. And Noah, you were able to see it in person, beats Just a Touch, who really ran a very good race, especially considering the pace was pretty quick. Epic Ride, a long shot that we used underneath, by the way, at our pool party, but we didn't play a try with Sierra on top because we had other things on top. Pays $532. Thank you, Kentucky Breakage. And then, of course, you see the buyers there. You got a 98 buyer top. This 90, by the way, is actually a 95. I don't know if you guys heard, but that Risen Star buyer was adjusted to 95. When I click on his PPs, you'll see now it has 95 on there. Just a Touch in 96. No, let's go to you first, and I'll just leave this on the screen. And of course, we will show the replay. Let's start at the very beginning of the race, actually before the race. You were on the apron, probably, I don't know, 100 yards away from Sierra Leone, what it might have been. Your thoughts as he was reacting, apparently, to the crowd and getting a little bit, a little teenager-ish, I would say, behind the gate.
Yeah, he was acting as a 3-year-old does. I think Tyler said after the race that maybe it was just because of the big crowd and because they were placed so far outside. You made a good point when we were kind of talking yesterday. He never really bucked. He never really did anything too fractious. But once he got in the gate, he was ready to go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Actually, we're not going to see those antics. I thought he broke fine, though. I'm going to show it a few times. He's had a little bit of trouble out of the gate. Like, he didn't stumble. He's just not naturally quick. That is a small concern for me for the Derby because he's the 10 here. If he doesn't break clean, you have horses coming, down on him from the outside. So that is a small concern for me, Noah.
Yeah, it definitely is one. I mean, the field here is you get a field of 10 and you're going to get double that in the Derby. Here he got the benefit of the outside post, so he doesn't have, either a horse who's outside, especially a speed horse, coming over on him. So Tyler just kind of takes back and takes him to a spot. A little bit of kickback is, Tyler in the interview had a lot of dirt in his face. Tyler took him back and he was perfectly content to sit where he was.
Dave, when you watched this race and saw Sierra right here, I'm sure you weren't surprised. Were you concerned at all? Or you're just like, this is what he does?
No, this is what he does. I haven't seen any race where they've tried to push him forward at all. Drop him back in a comfortable position, get ready to make his big run, and that's what he's known for.
Just a touch, getting a real nice trip. And I have to freeze it right here. I talked on the show. I'm not the only one. I'm not going to suggest I'm some kind of genius. This is Dornoch right here. He was pulling guys the entire time. I'll put you both on screen. They said they were going to try to rate him. At least they did what they said. I do like that because sometimes you hear a lot of crap, Dave, from trainers and whatnot. But Gargan said they were going to try to rate him. He was never comfortable at any point. And they said after the race that he's going to be forward in the Kentucky Derby. He's just one of those horses that needs to be free running. If people don't think Dornoch is sending hard, they're crazy in the Derby, Dave, because this didn't work out at all.
Yeah, I was against Dornoch in this race. I felt that his numbers have not been progressing forward, and I think he's kind of fat, very similar to Track Phantom. They don't seem to be moving forward, and that's probably part of the reason why you just mentioned that Track Phantom is going to be going in blinkers, because they're trying to wake him up and get him to perform a little bit better. I think I gave out the 6 is my top selection, figuring that he would be forward, which is favorable on the dirt at Keeneland.
Yes.
I knew that soon as Top Connor drew the 1 hole, they had no choice but to send this horse, which also sets up really well for Sierra Leone, since they go 23, 46, 110 to the 3/4 and set up the race really, really well for the closers, which there were not many in this race.
Now, Noah, someone, I think it was Matthew DeSantis from Naira, put out something very interesting on about Keeneland this past weekend. We talked privately, yesterday about how speed favoring it was. Why don't you, if people didn't see that on X, talk about how speed favoring it actually was this weekend at Keeneland, which makes the Sierra Leone run just that. 98 buyer based on the bias. You could have said 105. It's hard to equate a bias to a number, but talk about that post that you saw in the bias a little bit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was 100% no doubt about it. There was a significant bias in the track being speed favoring. The post from Matthew DeSantis was the fact that there had been one horse, or the furthest that a horse had come from on the dirt was either 3 or 3 1/4 lengths back at the second call. And I think he was kind of an outlier at that point. There were a couple horses that if they closed, it was from, a length and a half, 2 off. Yeah. So the fact that he did that, and credit to Just a Touch, who Dave, you touched on and liked. I wasn't a huge fan of him. But considering the fast fractions, he ran a hell of a race. But just considering that bias, Sierra Leone coming like a train on the outside, it was awesome to see.
There was a small point, Dave, where I wasn't exactly sure he was going to get there. But once Tyler goes left-handed, like right about here, when he's really getting into him, this right here is just, he is absolutely gobbling up the ground. And Just a Touch, by the way, is a nice horse. He's not exactly blowing by some kind of chump there. And Dave, he wins in hand in the final 50 yards. And Tyler said after the race that, quote, we haven't even gotten close to the bottom of him yet. So I know we're a little bit biased, Dave, on this podcast, but, someone who's not directly involved in a bet like you are with Sierra Leone, and someone who's been doing this for a long time at a successful rate, Dave, you have to just blown away by this horse's kick in the stretch. It's really quite incredible.
Yeah, his late kick is very similar to, going back to my early days with like Ali Sheba or maybe even Orb. had a very strong late kick. One concern that I do have with him, I mean, he finished the last quarter in 13.1,
Yeah.
which, considering the track bias, that's still a pretty good strong close. I'd like for horses to finish maybe 12 and change, 12.7, 12.8 in that last quarter. But in his races, he hasn't needed to go that hard.
No.
If you notice deep in the stretch when he got up to the group of horses, you notice his body squatted down. And when a horse is really digging in and going, his body will lower to the ground and he digs in deeper. And he did that until the final 40 yards when the jockey knew he had it won, eased up, and you could see his body rise again. It's impressive. It's very impressive.
Look who's here, Dave. Brad Anderson. Great to see Dave on the podcast. Awesome to hear his wisdom. A lot of fans out there, Dave. We love having you there. Rodney Evans thinks that Just a Touch is very, very dangerous. Before we move on to the next race, guys, and just close out the Bluegrass, either one of you have any thoughts on Just a Touch in the Derby? Was that just a good run? Is it going to be too much too soon in the Derby? How do you guys feel about Just a Touch for Brad Cox? I'll let you answer first, Noah. In the Derby specifically?
In the Derby, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't a huge fan of Just a Touch going into the Bluegrass, just because his two races prior were both on a sloppy track. That performance, considering that they heated it up pretty good up front, I think it was a pretty legitimate performance. But you also have to consider the fact that, I mean, we've touched on two horses of many that we assume are probably going to be on the lead or near it. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to kind of overcome that, or if they can kind of switch the tactics with him and move into kind of a mid-pack horse.
Dave, your thought on Just a Touch in the Derby?
Well, if you go back over the last 3 or 4 years, Brad Cox has done amazing things with horses going into grade ones, breeders' cups, derbies. And this horse is lightly raced. He's improving. His numbers are growing up. He's got speed to put himself in position, but I don't think he has to be on the lead. Big key to him is going to be where he gets in the gate in the Derby. If he gets a really bad post, he could get covered up and get dirt kicked in his face. And I'm not sure how that's going to affect him.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel yet. It's a lot to ask to come off a big race like that and then run, for such a lightly raced horse. He's definitely got talent. I think I would definitely put him in the try in the Super, third and fourth. I don't think he's going to win. Second might be asking a little bit too much, but he's a nice horse. I think he's a real nice horse. He feels like a real like Haskell kind of horse to me, guys. Like he's got tactical speed. He's going to get better. Sierra Leone, last question, move on. Look, for people think he's too slow or whatever, I get it. But based on the fact that he's gone against the bias guys in the Bluegrass and in the Remsen, and look at the job of Chad Brown, guys, 71, 91, 95, 98. He's going to be going longer, which is better, not because he's a closer, okay, because we know that fallacy, but the way he runs, just with his what he's shown, he's just professional, and that he's in the breeding. The fact that Tyler's not asking completely, I see no reason, and we have a month to talk about it, guys. I see no reason why he can't run a mid-100s buyer in the Derby, which he might need to. That's my opinion. Do you guys either have any thoughts on, how fast could he possibly run in the Derby, real buyer-wise? Let's forget time for him right now.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Dave?
My biggest concern in the Derby is going to be what kind of trip is he going to get?
Yeah.
I think he's going to run this typical race where he makes one big late run, very similar to Forever Young. They're both going to be coming from probably the same spot, and they're both going to be moving really, really well in the stretch.
You think Forever Young's going to be that far back?
Well, 2 races ago, he blew the start.
Right.
And they, to catch that horse on the front out, the New York horse was pretty amazing. Last time they rushed him up. It's a one turn. He goes 5 wide the whole way. He still finished the fastest quarter of any horse that weekend. in the that AUE weekend.
Yeah.
So it's very, very impressive. It's probably out of any of the horses that ever come out of Dubai or Japan, or I've never been on the wagon before, but this horse is different. I really do feel that he's an American horse that was bred in Japan. His whole
Yeah.
family tree is American, and the Japanese are bred to go the classic distances where our horses are not anymore. And
Yeah.
I think that mile and a quarter makes a big difference. It's going to separate the boys from and the men for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, Noah, what's his realistic top in the Derby? Can he improve 10 more points in the Derby to get to a mid 100s?
Well, considering the bias, I feel like he just did run a mid 100. So if he does
That's
it
what
again, he's gonna put himself right in it.
I think the 98 buyer, unless he gets a really bad trip, it might be the lowest buyer we're going to see for him in a while. I mean, the last thing I'll say, I don't mean to go on. If you look, everyone, I recommend everyone look at Gun Runner, the sire. Look at his lifetime PPs. He didn't really improve, and he didn't run his major tops until he was like a 4-year-old. And so this horse is already running that. This horse is just scary. There are some negatives. We have a month to talk about it. It's very exciting. Congrats to everyone who had Sierra Leone. We're going to see him. I'm going to actually myself and Paul and possibly Patrick Kunzel is going to see him Saturday morning coming up here if we can work it out and feed him some peppermints or just say hello or whatever. And don't worry, Matt Miller and everyone else, we won't bother him. He'll be like, hey, Howard, I saw you at Payson in December. How am I doing so far? I think he's doing okay. All right, and he'll go, yeah. All right. Anyway, the Wood. Let's go to the Wood, guys. This race was not pretty. Congratulations to Resilience for the win. I'll show his PPs right now for Bill Mott. It's only a 90 buyer. Definitely benefited from two things. Number one, the two horses in this race. Let me show. He paid $11. Look at this underneath, guys. Society Man. Another Gargan going to the Derby, by the way, and then another long shot. Buyers weren't very good. The two main threats, Tuscan Sky and Turbinistic, just didn't run very well. Turbinistic, they don't really know why he didn't run well, although he came out of the race okay. Look at how low the buyers are there. Tuscan Sky didn't break great and just didn't run his race. Resilience ran very solid. Definitely benefited guys from El Grande O scratching before the gate, who apparently was lame. I'll just show the stretch run. Thoughts on Resilience, Dave. We'll go to you first.
I thought the jockey rode a perfect trip. He didn't have to do anything more than what he was required to do to win the race. One thing that I did like was that as they rushed out of the gate and he was down on that rail, he had a chance to come up inside of that horse. And I thought, oh, don't go up in there. And he pulled back and settled him and brought him out 3 wide. I thought it was a perfect ride.
I agree. It was a great ride. It was a great trip. I don't know what it means going forward. There he is, Dave, where I do like that. Look, there's all this space here, Dave. So why try to sneak in here, right? I love that ride a lot. I think that's really smart. Noah, right here, if you have the one, I mean, he's in hand while the two horses in front of him are pushing. Look, he's still in hand here, Noah. I mean, he looked really tough the whole way. Meanwhile, Tuscan Sky, the gray, just struggled to catch up there. And the Turbinistic, for some reason, just didn't have it. Right here, it seems like Resilience is, 4 to 5.
Yeah, you could tell that. I think Johnny V was riding him that day, but Johnny V, he hadn't even kind of asked him until the top of the stretch. And fortunately, we got news that they had cut the video there because I think it was deposition had gone down. Fortunately,
right.
We got news that both the jockey and horse are okay.
Yes,
but going back to Resilience, he posted a 90 buyer last time in the Risen Star, and he posted a 90 buyer here. So going forward, based off of numbers, he's really going to have to improve if he wants to kind of get a piece of it in the Derby.
Yeah, he's not really a threat in the Derby based on what we saw. Intimus just out of a Smart Strike it's Smart Strike mare. He's actually got some turf braiding, Dave. I wonder if we'll see him on the turf at some point, trained by Mott. But for right now, obviously, he's going to be on the dirt. I don't I don't know what you do in the Derby with him. I guess you just be tactical and hope that he improves, but I don't see him. He'd be one of the horses I'd be leaving out of a super personally.
I think he's going to try to set his trip and try to make his run. He just might not be good enough. I have a general rule that I always use in the Derby. If you cannot get me a 97 buyers or above in your final prep, then you're not going to make my try for sure.
Okay. Interesting. So you didn't have Rich Strike in your try.
No.
Sorry.
Your surprise on video was just like mine.
Just because you brought it up, I've had a few people ask me recently, like, was that manufactured? That was, honest to God, I was watching it live at home that year, and that was I'm like, the podcast had just started, really. I think that was 21, right? Was that 21? The podcast was literally 3 months old, 4 months old. And I said, you know what? I'm going to film myself just for fun, hoping that someone was going to win. I think I had a future on, I can't remember, but I think Zan and I liked a lot. I don't know if I can't remember if I had a future or not, but I know I needed him to win the race. And that was my honest reaction. It was like, I have a friend that calls that Howard's palms up reaction, because it was like, what are you going to do? All right. So the wood was the wood. Disappointing. Tom Espinoza wanted to know what happened. Oh, it was a what the F happened race for me. Okay. Yeah, that was weird, Tom. It was just bad. It was ugly. It was just, there's really not much to add. Michael Austin said it was 22. Okay, I forget the year. Okay, let's move on, guys, to your neck of the woods, Noah, at least your home base, so to speak, out west. The Santa Anita Derby. I've heard a little buzz. I have to say it's mainly from West Coast people, so I don't know if it's biased or we're underestimating the horse or what. But Stronghold wins the Santa Anita Derby over Imagination, a Baffert horse, pays $640. I know you like Stronghold. I like Stronghold. This was excellent for our pocketbooks. Only got an 89 buyer. I thought it would be a better buyer. I was a little surprised. Maybe the time form is better. I don't recall seeing a time form. We'll check it out. I thought Antonio Fresu ran, talk about riding a race, Dave. I thought Antonio Fresu was absolutely fantastic in this race. We're not going to show the whole race, Noah, but your opinions on Stronghold, before you give your opinions, let me show his current PPs, which does include his win. Phil D'Amato, more known as a turf trainer out there, can certainly train a dirt horse. I guess, no, in a weird way, as I put you guys on screen, there's a little Chad Brown dichotomy there, right? I mean, they're both sort of more known for their turf horses. Now they've got some nice dirt horses, though. Chad has had a lot more nice dirt horses than Phil D'Amato has had. Paired up his 89, won the Sunland Derby nicely. And again, as I showed this stretch here, Fresu gave a great ride and beat a good horse in Imagination.
Yeah, that's actually the first time I'm seeing the buyers, and I think that is a little bit low. I thought Stronghold, he had a little bit of sneaky trouble, I thought, in certain spots, especially kind of around the far turn and the top of the stretch. At this point, he's getting a pretty good trip, a little in between horses, but Fresu's got him spotted well. He just kind of let the three of those horses go. Imagination maybe got a little caught up in the speed, and Imagination ran a hell of a race. He kind of held his own and stayed up there for pretty much the entire race. But hats off to Fresu. He's another California up and comer where he's mainly kind of been winning on turf, and he's been one of D'Amato's kind of first calls. He's been right up there with Flavien Prat and JJ Hernandez. So it's really good to see him kind of get that recognition, and he's going to be riding his first Derby.
Right here is the move you're talking about. It's pretty tight, and he splits. That's just a perfect ride. And then the horse has the acceleration. He's willing to go through a hole. And now it's just a throwdown, Dave, from here between these two, Dave.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very patient ride. He could have got the jump on the 8 earlier, and he decided not to and set and wait and split coming into the home stretch there. It's kind of surprising that the buyer was that low. I can't remember a buyer in the Santa Anita being that low going back to maybe Giacomo, I think was in 90 or in 89 when he won. But, that was a 4-horse photo finish, I think. But it's an impressive, they went under 50, ran 13 seconds final quarter and only had to run, a final eighth. Pretty impressive. He's another type of horse that can be put in a position, and if he gets a clean trip, he could try to make a run but he's got to improve. I mean, he's the type of horse that's going to have to go up 10 points for sure to have a chance to be in the superfecta.
Dave, here's your final eighth. Again, 13 and some, and that's what Sierra Leone came home in also. So I don't know if you feel like that's a knock on anyone. To me, the difference, though, Dave, and Noah knows this very well, and you do as well because you live out there too. I mean, San Diego is just a faster track, and it was playing faster than Keeneland. So to me, if Imagination was like a serious Derby threat for me, he would have split between and really accelerated 1 by 2 or 3. The fact that he was, life and death to beat Imagination, who was doing more of the dirty work, I don't see it. I think Stronghold could show some early speed, though, not fierceness early speed, but in the front flank, when push comes to shove, I just don't see it with this horse. This is another one I probably would use at best in 4th in a super. That's just my opinion. Quick thoughts, guys, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think right at this point, I currently have him out of the top 20 point earners. I've got him setting number 10 as where I think he would be quality-wise to make the Derby field, about number 10.
Noah, is that how you see him? He's more like, middle of the pack right now in terms of talent and where you'd put him. I'm not suggesting he'd finish 10th, but just your overall vibe, he's just one of those middle MAC kind of horses for the Derby.
Yeah, I think he's about middle of the pack right now. I know Phil D'Amato, I think he always thought of him as a really nice horse. He brought him over to California in the summer as a 2-year-old, and he had shown a little bit of promise, and he's kind of finally starting to figure things out. So if he can improve, maybe he can get up for, the trifecta or superfecta.
I think it's pretty cool.
Might be one you'll see on the turf in the future too.
Yes, and
Definitely.
Another horse that's got some turf breeding, and I think it's just cool that I like there's a West Coast representative. I'm not saying he's the best. I'm not saying he's better than the Baffords. I don't even want to go there. We could talk about Baffert if you want, but one horse is Nisos is not going to the Preakness, by the way, and Maimon, I don't know what his story is, and Muth is in a courtroom right now. So I mean, an Imagination, would have qualified for the Derby and is a nice horse, but I wouldn't consider Imagination a Derby threat, at least in my opinion. Frankly, I'm not 100% sure Muth is really a serious Derby threat. But anyway, that's a conversation we'll never know. We don't care. Before I show the points leaderboard, guys, I'll go to you first, Noah. In your opinion, the best Derby prep of the season, and we do have to remind everyone, as you know very well, because I'll see you very soon in person, the Lexington Stakes is being run Saturday. It's the last official Derby prep. However, it's only 20 points to the winner. I believe is it 15 second, 10 third? I think I'll have to look at it. I think that's what it is. So there is one more Derby prep, but really the main ones are over. The best Derby prep of the season, in your opinion, Noah?
Yeah, I limited my best and worst to the 50 and the 100 points because I think they're just kind of, the best of the best. So in terms of the 50 and the 100s, I think the Risen Star is kind of head and shoulders above. You just look at the first 5 finishers in that race. You got Sierra Leone, who came back and won the Bluegrass. You got Track Phantom, who although ran a kind of a disappointing 4th in the Louisiana Derby, he had won the Lecomte prior to that. Catching Freedom was very impressive, coming from the back of the pack and coming up to win the Louisiana Derby. Resilience, who we just saw win. Granted, he got a perfect trip in the wood. And then even Honor Marie, who finished 5th in the Risen Star, came and ran a decent 2nd in the Louisiana Derby. So out of the races that we've seen horses kind of come back and run in other preps after that, it's kind of hard to say that the Risen Star isn't the best.
We'd love to hear your opinions in the chat. I know I'm not bringing up a lot of comments in the chat. I apologize, everyone. But we'd love to hear your comments in the chat. Your best and worst Derby preps of the season. And like Noah said, let's try to keep it like the 50 and the 100. Like, we don't need to bring up the El Camino Real. Like, we don't, whatever. You bring up some of the major Derby preps. Your best and worst in your opinion. Dave, best Derby prep in your opinion? You also think Risen Star?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with Noah on the Risen Star because you had multiple horses that have a chance to make the Derby field, and it was a very competitive race, and Sierra Leone is leading the pack in the points, and there's a group that are sitting right behind her that are trying to improve and make that step forward that they
Yeah.
need to get there on the first Saturday in May.
I think it's a no-brainer. Anyone who thinks it's not the Risen Star, I mean, I guess you could make a cheeky argument the Florida Derby just for the simple fact that Fiercest ran a hole in the wind. But as a whole, in terms of depth and quality, the Risen Star by far was the best Derby prep. Worst one, Noah. Here we go. Time to throw some swords out there.
I've got a couple listed. First one I'll start with is the Holy Bull, because it let people in the horse racing world create idiotic opinions about fierceness, I think. Second one, I think, is a Tampa Bay Derby, kind of because they had the tote issue and it was a non-wagering event. And also the field was really not very great. And as
Wait,
much
you're
as
blaming the tote you're saying the tote is the reason why it was a bad Derby prep? What if the horse ran off the screen with a 110 buyer, but they still had a tote issue? Would you say it was a bad Derby prep?
I think people would be pissed if they would have bet that horse and they couldn't, and he ran off the screen.
Yeah, it was a cluster.
As much as it pains me, the last one I'll mention is the California circuit, because the Baffert horses have kind of stolen points, and it hasn't really shaped up to be, some of the West Coast threats that we, are used to seeing. So it's kind of a shame in that regard. But I think any of those, 3 or 4 could be considered.
Matt Miller. Oh boy, Matt, you and I are going to have some words later. Don't hate me. Don't hate on me for this. Best Derby pro was Fiercest in his last. I don't necessarily think he will replicate that, but I think it was the best run race yet. So I guess it depends how you define best, right, Dave? I mean, yes, you got a 110 buyer. I think I consider a best prep as looking at it as a whole. What did the field look like? What did they? Of course, they have to run fast, but I look at it more as a whole. I think Matt would be correct if I said what was the best performance of the prep season. I think you could say it was Fierceness, but I don't think you could say the Florida Derby was the best prep race of this season, Matt. So that's just my opinion, just to push back. Let's talk to a smarter guy than all of us here. Dave, best and worst prep in your opinion?
Well, I agree that the Risen Star was definitely the best prep because of the fact that you got multiple horses that perform well, that have showed that they're continuing to move forward heading into May. Best performances, I would probably say Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, it was just as good as the Florida Derby. I mean, when I sat there at the Breeders' Cup in the grandstand and I went, wow. I mean, you don't often get wows in horse racing, and that was one of them.
I guess we can say that's a Derby prep. I never really gave that consideration, but okay.
It's points, right? It's points. But I mean, in the final ones here, I mean, outside of the Risen Star, I mean, Arkansas Derby, the 2 strong finishers coming from the back of the field. I thought that this weekend's Bluegrass was nice with the 2 top runners there, both improving, both moving forward at the right time, numbers going up every single race. I think they continue to move forward, both of them. I still think they're young enough, they're lightly raced, they're going to have an improvement. The worst that seems like to be every year is the Wood. The Wood is just getting worse and worse every year. I'd like for them to do something down the road to bring that race back. It just hasn't been around for years.
Yeah, the Wood for some reason just has. I think the emergence of Oaklawn is the reason why the Wood has struggled, because the purses at Oaklawn are insane. And even though the Arkansas Derby trail was not as good as it has been in the past, I just think the purses at Oaklawn, and a lot of horses are going down there, Dave, I think has changed the Wood. That's just my opinion. To me, it's a no-brainer. The Risen Star was clearly the best preps of the season. And Noah, you mentioned why. Look at all the horses that came out of there. I mean, it's absolutely insane. The worst is one you guys haven't mentioned yet, in my opinion. The Fountain of Youth was just a complete, that's one Dornock won in a slow time with an easy trip. And behind him was Ladam Bro, Frankie's Empire. it was just that whole race. It fell apart, right? It was supposed to be Victory Avenue and that nice rail. I can't remember the name. The other Pletcher that was the nice horse on the rail.
Speak
I mean,
easy.
Speak Easy. I mean that race just disintegrated in front of our eyes. The day, within the day of the race, and the Fountain of Youth was just especially the way Dornock came back. Although I think Dornock can actually run better in the Derby. I don't like him. I think he can run better though. I thought the Fountain of Youth, actually the whole Florida circuit was awful, to be very honest with you, which is why, again, I give a ton of credit to Fiercest. He ran unbelievable in the Florida Derby, but it was a paid workout. He went to the lead on a speed favoring track, whatever. We'll talk about it later, but just beat absolutely nobody. So anyway, Derby prep season was fun, and we saw some big performances. I should give a shout out too to Catching Freedom in the Arkansas Derby. I thought that was pretty impressive. He won the Louisiana Derby. My bad. I thought he was impressive in the Louisiana Derby, but again, as a whole, to me, it's a no-brainer. It is Sierra Leone and the depth and quality of the Risen Star. All right, guys, we're going to end the show in about 5-6 minutes here, but let's bring up the points situation right now for the Kentucky Derby. And for everyone at home, we are going to have an Oaks show. Maybe next Monday we'll focus on the girls, because the Oaks is going to be a very exciting race. Ways and Means, as of this moment, is actually not in the Oaks by about $14,000. I read today. It's a hell of a story. I hope she gets in, but we will talk about the girls. Just we're not going to do it tonight. But let's talk about the points leaderboard. I don't know if you guys have seen an update, but let's take a look at it. Here it is, and it's not the final leaderboard, but basically it is. You got Sierra Leone on top of the 155. Again, the top 20 get in. As I scroll down the leaderboard, Noah, thoughts as you see these horses as I scroll down, and I'll talk about the end of the leaderboard in a minute.
Yeah, I think after this weekend, we've kind of got the stage set. Unless we hear news within the upcoming weeks that some horses, decide not to go that route, then you can bring others in from 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It can constantly change, as we saw last year, all the way up to the day of the Derby, at the first Saturday in May. So it's going to be, interesting to see. I think we've got a little bit of a two-headed snake here with Fiercest and Sierra Leone, and it'll be really fun to see those two battled out.
Endlessly is going to the Derby, as far as we know. He wasn't going to. They changed their mind. Everyone on this list, as far as we know, is going. There is a story of the Deterministic. Let me go to the bottom here, Dave. Deterministic for Clement, they said they're not sure. They don't know what happened. He came out of the race fine Saturday in the Wood, but obviously that was very disconcerting effort. And the Clements are true horsemen, so if they don't think the horse is ready or is a legit shot, they won't go. T.O. Password has accepted the invitation from Japan, so it comes down to this. Hades, Dave, is running in the Lexington on Saturday. If he wins, he gets 20 points, and he would move up to 50 points, and he would knock No More Time out. Even though they have T.O. Password as 20, T.O. Password is really more like 19 because he's automatically in. So basically, if Hades wins, then No More Time will be knocked out. Otherwise, everything else is set. Grandmo the First, A Common Defense, Epic Ride, etc. They would need defections, Dave.
Yeah. It's last year was just musical chairs. It was unbelievable how many horses were in and out in 24th hour. With all the vets and everybody that's involved, and it just got ugly last year. So hopefully we have something more stable this year, and we'll have a pretty good list of horses that run.
Yes. I like to see Hades win Saturday, because I want more speed in the Derby. But I think there is enough speed. We got all month to talk about that. Last thing, was someone Bittersweet. I don't think I've seen Bittersweet in the chat. Bittersweet, thanks for joining the show. Sorry for my voice, everyone. I was yelling this weekend for some unknown reason, and talking a lot at the pool party as well. But Timberlake is out, but I don't think Timberlake was not on this list, right? He's on the list, but they have him scratched out of there. So, right, because he's not going there. And Encino if Encino wins, he'll be on the AE list. So that is true. But, he's not going to be going to the Derby. It doesn't look that way. As of right now, guys, I put you back on the screen and wrap up the show. Fierceness is somewhere around 3-1 in Vegas, and Sierra Leone is about that, maybe 7-2. Quick thoughts, Noah. Let's say the field holds together as we see it. What do you think Fierceness and Sierra Leone will be on the day come post time? What should they be? Sorry, what do you think they will be, Noah? And what do you think they should be? I'll put you guys on the spot to end the show.
I think Fierceness will be 5-2 on the day, and I think he should be about 4-1. I think Sierra Leone will be about 7-2, and I think that's probably about right.
So you've got Fierceness 5-2, Sierra Leone 7-2 when they spring the latch. Dave, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I tweeted out immediately after Fierceness won the race here in Florida and said, "There's your favorite for the Derby." I got a lot of flack because I think people thought I said, "There's your winner," but I didn't say he's your winner. I said he is your favorite with that kind of performance backing up his Breeders' Cup performance. I think with the betting size pools, the international money, everything that's involved now, I think 3-1 is probably going to be Fierceness. It's just too much money involved, and people, they're to have a good time, and they're not gamblers. They're betting their favorite names or colors or jockeys or silk colors or whatever it may be. I think it's fair odds, probably 4-1. I think because he just has some questions. He runs a good one, runs a bad one, runs a good one, runs a bad one, and you're not sure what you're going to get. And the Derby isn't always one of the races that you need to bet the most amount of money. Sometimes you bet the least, and there's a lot more other races that day that are worth going after. Sierra Leone, consistent, constantly moving up, improving every single race. I think 7-2 for sure. I just don't see being any shorter than that. I mean, 7-2, 4-1 tops.
Okay. I think there's a lot of amateur betting in the Derbies, we all know, and there's a lot of silly money. I'll tell you what I do know. All these green sheets and all the speed fig people are going to love Fierceness with all these big numbers. And Dave, you know this very well. You and I have been around a long time. They're going to see all these 1-1-1-1. They're see Breeders' Cup. I think Fierceness could be as low as 2-1. I really do think they're just going to pound this horse. He's going to work great at Churchill, right? He's going to, a minute breezing. He's going to look amazing. All the blah, blah, blah. And I think Sierra Leone will be about 3 because I think there's a lot of buzz on him. And I don't think this is surprising to you guys, but based on some of the foreign money and the vibe, I really think Forever Young is going to be the third choice in this race. And I think he's going to take money like 6-7-1. I really do. I don't think he should be at all. I think Forever Young should be 15-1 in this race. I think Fierceness should be, like you guys said, about 4, and Sierra probably like 5. I mean, realistically. But it's going to be fascinating to see. But it is definitely those top 2. For sure. Guys, we run out of time. It's been a great show. Noah, Purdue or UConn? Who do you got?
Purdue.
Dave?
I think you're going to have to go with UConn. They got more of a depth, I think.
Okay. Well, we will find out. It should be a great NCAA tournament. Obviously, people are going to be watching this afterwards, and they'll be yelling into the screen, "Howard, you idiot, UConn won," or whatever, etc. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. We had a lot of fun tonight. We got less than a month at Kentucky Derby. We're going to have plenty of Sierra Leone convo on here. We're going to talk about the Oaks soon. Should you hedge? ? That'll be a show coming up. I wonder why. We got a lot of exciting things to talk about. And Noah, can't wait to see you, man, in a few days in person down in Lexington. It's going to be very exciting. For my wonderful co-host tonight, Noah Maher, who is also co-host, of course, of Ben Boozen, and the one and only racing downwind, Mr. Dave Duncan. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 16 of Horsin Around. Crush your bets wherever you play this week. We'll see you on Bet and Boozin' Wednesday and Picks and Ponies Thursday night. Both shows, 8 p.m. Eastern. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
minutes. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.